Test, test, test. Put a little breaker in there. Welcome to the Business Samurai Podcast. I'm your host, John Barker. Today I've got another solo take, kind of an emotional. I'm going to be talking about emotions today. Educational video of my years in the trenches and what I've seen to be a better tactician within your business, a better leader within your business, and try to help get you to the goals that you want to achieve, to aspire to. So today is people feeding off your emotions as a leader. And this is something I've seen kind of a lot. So what I'm going to do during this this episode is quickly break down a couple of stories that I've experienced, and what whether you're running a small team, maybe it's your first time running a group, or whether you're the CEO of a large organization, how you conduct and manage your emotional state absolutely affects your direct reports and it will actually affect the outcomes that you're trying to go. So, quick story. Years ago, was running a project that a company had been awarded, and I'm going to get into some of this later on about project management and the pitfalls if leadership will not make decisions in a timely fashion. But essentially, it was a high-profile project that I ended up becoming in charge of with a very small team. During the course of the implementation, the scope kept increasing, meaning we had to keep adding on work to it, but also our time was decreasing, and we weren't getting a lot more resources to help with this stuff. Again, I may break this down a little bit more detail on project management do's or don'ts, and not that I was even in control. But what was happening was, as this project for the organization was pretty highly visible, it was clear that with all the changes that senior leadership was getting absolutely stressed out. We were getting into these situations where they were worrying, they were running in and checking on progress. It was like every hour, or wanting to have these crazy meetings that was pulling away my team. And I've always prided myself on maintaining, I hesitate to use the words a stoic approach to stuff, but getting overly emotionally amped up, whether it was too happy, too sad, too angry, in the moment. Afterwards, let her rip. But in the moment, getting overly emotionally amped up to me meant the chances that I was going to succeed at the project were going to greatly be reduced. Well, what was happening was, as the other senior leaders in the organization, because it was in this particular project, it was very top heavy. Again, I think there was more top heavy management not actively involved in the execution of trying to get this off the ground as there were on my team actually trying to make it happen, if I recall correctly. So what was happening was they were getting around and worrying, and you could see it. I mean, just talking to them, nervousness in their voice and this stuff. The team that I was having to work with to execute the project started mimicking that behavior, to the point that it was becoming detrimental, because now their worry was overtaking execution of what we needed to get done. And I remember going in finally, as this was coming to a boiling point. I think we'd had another thing of, hey, you've got 2 less days to execute on this. That I told the team that if the changes did not come from my mouth, you were to disregard them, to only listen to me. I don't care if someone that quote unquote is higher up on the totem pole comes and tells you to do something related to this project. You do not do it without talking to me, because they were not being, there was just no structure around what was happening during this, along with the emotional state. And you could watch the emotional states transferring from the leader to the other staff. So we ended up, I don't know how well that went over when I finally told the upper management in this particular case, leave me alone or this will not get done, and stop asking me things that I know to be true. Basically get out of my way, which finally did. We get through the project with 3 hours to spare. It was the closest I've ever come to missing a deadline of something that I, quote unquote, was in charge of. Granted, it really didn't feel like it in the moment. But by being able to become a buffer between the team that I needed to execute, and I mean, I needed them to execute well. We were working between 12 and 16-hour days, particularly in the last couple of weeks to make this happen. I needed them to be on point and not be distracted by worry warts other in the organization. So this is something that if you're running a team, if you're running a project, you need to be aware of how you handle stressful situations. If you are going out and you're worrying all the time, if you're angry all the time, if you're happy, worse in some cases is if you're just indifferent to whatever is going on, your team will actually start mimicking that. And be cognizant of that. Be aware of kind of what your emotional state is. And it's one thing to have a flash in the pan angry moment versus a prolonged, this is week in, week out, kind of the de facto state of things. Because you're going to wonder why performance is degraded. Quite frankly, look in the mirror. Because if you can sit there and identify what you're doing, change yourself, your team will follow suit. It may not be instantaneous, but should be pretty quick. Because I know in the case where I put myself in the mix and in the middle between my I'll use junior team for lack of a better word, even though some of them, they were senior roles, but put myself in the mix of that and became an emotional buffer. Performance went up. They were much happier. The times that I said, go home, don't worry about this. I'll just run some of this to ground because I need you fresh for the next phase. They would willingly stay to help me out and didn't complain about it. The complaints even went down. When you get all said and done, you got to debrief and figure out how do we avoid that situation again. But it all started with the emotional state. So if you want your team to be resilient, that we got this attitude no matter what obstacles come your way, because not all obstacles that you're going to approach are going to be internally driven, even though a lot of the ones I've seen in the last few years are definitely internally driven. You're going to get those external blocks, those external obstacles that you've got to overcome that you necessarily weren't expecting, didn't pop up in a risk management assessment, that are just there. So be aware of your emotional state. The more stoic that you can be in your response, going, okay, this is what's happened. I can't control that this is the situation that occurred, but I'm going to control my response to it because I need to set the example for my team. By doing that, you'll get through whatever the challenge is faster and more successfully than if you go around, like your hair's on fire, worrying and going, oh, we don't got this. I'm not sure what's going to happen. You've got to say, we got this up until the last second of the clock ticks down of when you were supposed to go live. That is the approach that you've got to do. So I remember it was 20 some years ago, place I was working at. I was a little bit more hot-headed in those days, except during the time periods when everything was falling apart around me. I was running a pretty decent sized network, and we didn't have a lot of budget for like the newest, latest, and greatest. So there was like these Band-Aid fixes, and we would experience some crashes. And I remember the CIO at the time, we'd have an outage that may have affected the website going down or email going down for a period of time. And everybody's running around like the world's coming to an end. And mind you, it's not like there was a life and death situation, but there obviously is a cost to the business by being downtime cost. So again, not necessarily something I was familiar with when I was 21, 22. But I never lost my cool in those moments, even at the age of 21, 22, to the point that he came in, and I'll never forget this. I was in the server room, the rack's open, people were constantly banging on the door. We'd go in there and lock the door behind us just to be left alone, but constantly every few minutes. Until finally, the CIO comes in and he's all in a panic, and he made the comment, "How do you remain so cool and calm?" I said, would it help me to be like you right now? Do you think I'll actually solve this problem easier by getting all emotionally ramped up? I won't think clearly. I won't be able to put logic behind my problem solving, and I won't be able to get this up as fast if if I'm acting like you and pretty much everybody else in the office. And at that, he turned around and walked out. I never got talked to about that ever again. And to me, that is the type of presence as a leader that you need to have if you want to try to make sure that you can successfully overcome, again, the obstacles within your business or a project that do appear, because of course they will. Hopefully not super frequent where it's a day in, day out thing, even though there can be minor challenges, but I'm talking about the big gigantic things that you got to work on for, weeks or months at a time. So anyway, be cognizant of how you handle yourself in front of your team. They will mimic you. And if you found any of this useful, please go give me a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcast. Just a thumbs up if you see the post on LinkedIn or Twitter or something along that line, just to let me know I'm going down the right path, and hopefully you get some of this useful. And until next time, I am John Barker here at the Business Samurai.